All right. John, you hear me all right?
I can hear you just fine,
Okay.
Robert.
All right. We're on we're live here, so letting you know, it's got you in here. Yeah. We'll give it a couple minutes, kind of let people um show up.
Trickle in.
Minutes here, yeah, trickle in. Um yeah, you look good today, John.
Thank you.
You hit the gym already?
Something like that.
Okay. All right.
I lifted several cups of coffee.
Okay, hey, I'm with you on that one. Okay. Got some coffee in too. Um Yeah, so we'll just get started here. It's my first live, so I don't know how many people are going to show up, but um,
Well,
you ready?
congratulations on the live.
Yeah. No, this is something I want to start doing. This is pretty neat, and I get to connect with other business owners like you and facility managers as well. That's kind of the goal here, and
Yeah.
um, kind of get the word out about commercial painting and what's going on in the market. Um, Something that there's been some change on over the years, so I wanted to bring you on and give some value here. I know this is something you've been focusing on too, is commercial painting, and so really we're just going to be talking about the trends for facility management, maintenance, and keeping your buildings maintained. It's an
Yep.
important part, and so that's why I wanted to bring John on. So John, yeah, thanks for joining us, John Barry. Of course, I don't know if I need to introduce you. I'm sure everyone already knows who you are. Right?
Everyone.
Everyone,
We're
yeah.
worldwide.
But yeah, I've known you for what, I think it's about 3 years now. I've
At
known John,
least, yeah.
and we met in a commercial course, some commercial training, and our instructor was Scott Lawler. So if you're watching, Scott, shout out to you. You're awesome, man, and I really enjoyed that course and meeting you, John. So I wanted to bring you on because I know you got some value. So yeah, introduce yourself and let us know kind of a little bit about your company and what it is you guys do over there in Toronto area.
Right. Yeah. So we've been in business a little over 5 years. Um, I came from an IT background, 30 plus years, and got fed up with that and decided to make the change. My brother-in-law told me that if I ever became a renovator, he would totally hire me. So when we're looking at business opportunities, I'd gone through a pretty long list of things that I wanted to do or thought about doing. And then it dawned on me that painting was probably one of the most logical things. Having done a lot of painting throughout my life, for myself and family, it just made sense to move into that space.
Yeah.
And I think in around that time, I had discovered PBP, Paint Business Pro, where we met, and did the courses and learned a little bit more about business. And of course, the commercial course came up with Scott, and I jumped on that, even though we were still pretty fledgling. Um, didn't really have the money to do it, but we did it anyway. That's always been my motto, pedal to the metal,
Yeah.
both with marketing and with training, which is all very important to us.
Yeah.
Um, we did the commercial training in around the time when we had our first opportunity come up, and that was instrumental in helping us dial in some of our processes and some of our pricing. Um, we we've been focused more on the property management side
Okay.
of things.
It's good. Yeah.
So we tend to deal more with property managers. Um, we haven't done a lot of work with facility managers per se, but I think you see a lot of similarities between the
Yeah.
two. At the end of the day,
Absolutely.
it's commercial space and there are responsibilities with a variety of stakeholders.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, so yeah, we've been working with some property management organizations, and as we grow that space, we will start going after more of the facility management
Yeah.
contacts.
Yeah. You're right there. I mean, both kind of overlap. you know, and you're probably seeing a lot of similarities, excuse me, between the two for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but so you predominantly commercial painting over there, Toronto area,
Yeah, I
um,
would say we're still largely residential.
residential.
We are moving as we grow the team. We're looking more and more at the commercial side, and we do have some plans in place to attack that market. We've set up some tech for that.
Yeah,
So basically, building out our lists, identifying who's in the market space, some of the some of the technographics, I guess you could say, the size of the company, um,
yeah,
what
overall.
sorts of properties they maintain, et cetera. So trying to identify who are the most likely candidates that would need our services. And similarly, if they're a large enough organization that they may not hire painters directly, who are they working with on a regular basis that we can partner with uh, to get some of that business?
Yeah, partnerships are the key there for sure. And there's
Absolutely.
those big companies. Yeah, what I've seen is like a lot of they have in-house teams as well.
Right.
But then these bigger projects come up and they need help with that, so then we get into the contracting
Yep.
partnership part of it, especially if they're, multiple different properties. And but I'm curious, like, if you're doing your research, sounds like you've been kind of wanting really diving into that market and looking at it. Are there any trends that you see that this year that you've seen change a lot when it comes to commercial painting? Anything that's sticking
Yeah.
out to you?
I mean, I think we've seen it over the past couple of years with COVID, and now with AI coming out, we're seeing a lot of changes. And these may be changes or evolution in business that we see all the time. It just kind of morphs, and there's more emphasis on some things than others. But I think one of the things that we're seeing a lot of is sort of a consolidation around, um, what who facility managers want to deal with. Um, one aspect we've run into time and again is facility managers who kind of want to deal with someone that provide the whole enchilada.
Okay.
They want almost like a GC. So they
Gotcha.
might have a project come up where there's upgrades on the envelope. Maybe they've got some work on the interior in the halls and the fire escapes. Maybe there's um, work that need to be done within individual units, and they want to deal with a single point of contact. They don't necessarily want to have to deal with 10 or 15 different vendors.
Yeah.
And I think in part what we're seeing here is, constraints on the facility managers. There's only so much time. With AI, a lot of people have been eliminated from their business. Um, so there's more work for the facility manager to do, but they only have so many hours that they can work with.
Yeah.
So for them to deal with so many contractors is just untenable. So, they're migrating to more of a single point of contact. And that puts us in a vulnerable position because, we're not offering all of those capabilities. But as a way to mitigate that, we've sort of taken on like a GC light type of role. We partner with other folks that do, in some cases, electrical. So if we're doing, for instance, a popcorn ceiling removal, we often find that people are simultaneously looking for um, electrical updates. So they want to put in pot lights instead of the old um, fluorescent lighting.
Yeah.
Um, so we partner with people and we make it available to them, whether they want to deal with them directly or if they want to do it all through us. And if they do it through us, then we just add on a percentage for managing the project. And that gives us a little bit of an edge in that we're providing some value add, but we're not diluting our services because we're not trying to do everything ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. You see something, you see that partnership again where it's like, hey,
Absolutely.
if we've already worked together,
Yeah.
and I want to make your life easier, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do that. I'm gonna train my staff up
Yeah.
to
And
facilitate.
we've done that with electrical
Okay.
contractors. We have siding contractors.
Yeah.
Um, we've got, um, we've got guys that do flooring. So
Yeah.
whether you're replacing your flooring or just staining, we do that, and that's been very successful. Um, Surprisingly, we've actually done a fair bit of work with our electricians, something I never thought we would do, and
Yeah.
something that you have to be careful about because of licensing.
Yeah.
Here in
Yeah.
Canada,
Yeah.
even if you have a licensed electrician, for electricians to do work under insurance, they should have a corporation or a business that is also insured. So individual insurance, but also the business insurance. So we'll tend to run that through their company, so everything is insurable.
Yeah.
Um,
Gotcha. You
but
gotta
things
gotta
like
play by
the
the
floor
rules.
staining, yeah, we can manage all of that.
Okay.
And that also sort of segues to another trend that we're seeing, is that due diligence, because with the squeeze in the market, we're seeing a lot of new entrants and a lot of low price providers. So organizations, especially with the smaller property management organizations, who maybe haven't done their due diligence, vetting their contractors, um, it becomes vitally important that they do that, because they put themselves in a vulnerable position themselves if they're not taking the time to make sure that they have all of their documentation. So, their workers' compensation, a
Yeah.
proper liability, and so on.
Yeah.
So we tend to hammer on that quite a bit because we're seeing, um, we don't necessarily want to be, we're definitely not the low price provider. We are bringing in value add, and there is cost to that. But at the same time, because of all the other cost constraints and time constraints on the managers, they need to know that whoever they are partnering with is going to be able to do the job and to do it safely,
There you go. Exactly.
so that they're mitigating their liability.
Yeah. That's a good point you bring up. I mean, to be real, like most of the time they're going to get 3 to 4 bids on a single
Yeah.
project, especially if they haven't worked with a painter for a while. They're trying to find a new partner, and picking the low bid isn't always the right way, right?
Right.
And it may be good for the budget, but then what are some of the end results? So that does kind of transition to the next question here, and that is like, I mean, in Toronto, you guys experience a little bit different weather, but as far as the paint quality,
Yeah.
what type of products you guys using over there that you're seeing that really hold up? And yeah, I mean, obviously price is a factor. I'm not picking the most expensive paint on every project unless
Yeah.
that's something they want.
Yeah.
But durability is a factor. Just for
Absolutely.
sustainability and
Yeah.
just overall, no, it's going to last for you. You're not going to have to call me back in 2 years and have to repaint the building. But what
Exactly.
kind of products you guys seeing over there that really beneficial?
Yeah. Well, so we do a lot of brick staining,
Okay.
and with brick staining, one of the issues here, especially with buildings in the older um, environments, you get a lot of brick spalling, a lot of peeling, damage to the actual infrastructure with some of the paints. So we've moved towards brick staining.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
those are mineral-based stains or paints, I guess you could say. They offer more breathability. Um, they don't trap the moisture into the brick like a lot of the paints will. Um, I tell people to think of it as kind of like a Gore-Tex jacket versus a raincoat. I don't know if you've ever had a raincoat on, but you know, even if you don't get rained on, you're getting wet because of
Yeah.
your body moisture, right? You end up
Precipitation. Yeah.
coming out of those things soaking wet because they don't breathe. And that's what happens with paints or paint film over brick. And here in Canada, where we get a lot of thaw freeze cycles, those that trapped moisture will cause not only the paint to peel, but it can cause spalling of the brick. So basically, chunks or layers of the brick separate and fall right off. So we see that quite a bit, and it's not always exclusively because of paint. That can happen for any number of reasons, but paint does seem to exacerbate that, and that's why we've moved to a brick stain.
Gotcha.
Now, that said, there are times when maybe a brick stain won't make sense. With brick stains, you can go with either a translucent or an opaque. A translucent would be more like your traditional deck stain, for example, whereas an opaque is a solid. It's almost like a paint. And those are what we tend to use quite a bit for our application. However, we do paint a lot of buildings too. So if we have a stucco surface, we can either do a refresh of stucco over that, or we can paint it. And if we paint it, we might use something like Sherwin-Williams A100
Okay.
or their Loxon. The Loxon XP is a very high quality elastomeric paint. That goes on, it's extremely thick. And as an elastomeric, it's very rubbery. So really good for cinder block, really good for brick.
Okay.
So wherever you have areas that need a solid coating, maybe you need some weather protection, Loxon XP is going to be a very good choice for that.
Yeah, we've used that a few times here.
Yeah.
At owner's request,
Yeah.
and specifically for that masonry application.
Yeah.
You use a lot of super paint here as well. I don't know
Okay.
if you guys do that. Yeah.
We've had a couple of projects using that.
Yeah.
I think we just used that on one recent project for an interior.
Okay, got it. Yeah, it's a great exterior paint and goes on really good and
Nice.
covers and lasts. I mean, the sun just hammers here in the summer,
Okay.
and even those darker colors, it does hold up pretty good. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll talk to
Yeah.
my rep about that. We've
Yeah.
we've been a long time Benjamin Moore guys, mostly for the interior, because of the one project that we did with the Sherwin-Williams product and the success that we had with it. We have a tendency of going with Sherwin for exteriors. I don't know why.
Gotcha.
That might just be me.
Yeah.
But go with what you know, right?
Yeah.
And we've had success with it, so we tend to stick with that. And
Okay.
we do use a lot of A100 and the Loxon for exteriors. So
Okay. Cool.
we also use the Pro Industrial, so for things like railings.
Good.
Also the multi-surface we use. We've been pretty happy with that product. So for a variety of substrates, we'll use any one of those.
Yeah. We pick Sherwin-Williams predominantly. They test a lot of their products, in this region.
Yeah.
And man, we just get hammered with rain here. I'm sure you guys experience over there too. So got to make sure the things hold up.
Yep. All right.
But just transition here. There's a common red flag here, issue that we see coming up, which you probably see it over there as well, is these drive-by bids. And as you're talking about these concrete stains and you're saying stuff's, flaking off or even peeling, like you're having to physically go over there and look at that, right? I mean, so talk to me, like, is that something you guys are seeing over there, where these guys will just do drive-by bids, look at the square footage and say, oh, here's your numbers,
Oh yeah. Well, prime example, just yesterday we looked at a building. we put in a bid of about $4,000.
Yeah.
I thought, given the state of the building, they might hedge on that because, it wasn't a part of the building that was really visible. They just want to pretty it up a little bit. I guess it's one of those projects where you might call it lipstick on a pig.
Okay.
Um,
Lipstick
but
on a pig. All right.
but
I'll write
nonetheless,
that one down.
they needed a good quality coating to protect the brick. They do get a lot of traffic in the area and a lot of contamination on the building, so they need something that's going to last them a long time. They had one vendor come in and quote 10,000.
Yeah.
Which for me was pretty dramatic. I mean, we tend to be the highest price a lot of the time when we quote because of the service we want to give and the image we want to create. But by no stretch are we outrageous. And when we see bids like that, we think, okay, this is the kind of bid where they don't really want the work. They're just bidding it so high that they don't get it. They just don't want to walk away from it without giving a bid.
Got it.
Now, on the other extreme, they had another bid for $800.
That's quite a difference there. Yeah.
I chuckled. They recognized that was a little bit outrageous too, because for whatever reason, whatever math or calculus they used, they figured that this job might come in around $4,000 or so dollars. So maybe they had gone out and priced the paint themselves, and the paint easily will be $800 for this project. So, these guys obviously didn't know what they were doing, but so I don't know how companies are going out and sourcing their suppliers or their service providers, but one other trend that I wanted to talk about, and this is a perfect example, is, with the advent of AI, and not even necessarily AI, but AI is making it easier for sure. But, more and more we're seeing websites pop up that look very slick. You might get the impression that a company is a high-end company, quality. And if you don't scrutinize that carefully, you'll soon see that it's bunk. They might even have several reviews, but if you're not scrolling through those reviews and if you're not discerning, if you're not using some common logic, you'll soon see that it's a house of cards, right? We had one bid for a residential job that we did, and it was almost accepted. It was an interior repaint, about $10,000. They ended up going with a low bid of $3,000. And again, when you factor in your product costs, it's like nobody's making money. At what point will these guys abandon the job because maybe there was a problem they encounter or whatever? But at some point, they're not going to have any money to do anything. So if there's a problem, they won't be able to address it. There won't be anything. So they're either going back to the well or they're walking away from the project.
Yeah, it's too bad. And I hear that over and over again, where they just get about halfway through.
Right.
I've had people call me like, hey, they abandoned the job or something. It's because they just ran out. They simply just ran out of money.
So
and it's,
here's another example. We quoted a building. We walked in, we were doing some residential work. We saw that the hallways and elevators and doorways were underway. We called in to inquire about it, and it turned out that this project was not underway. It had started over a year earlier, as well as several other buildings. So not just the one property manager, but several property managers. Same thing. The vendor went in, they started the job, they primed the walls, and then suddenly declared bankruptcy. So, again, it goes back to underscoring the due diligence
Yeah.
process of vetting your
Yeah.
contractors. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's real easy to
recognizing that, yeah,
build a website overnight. I mean, it could be really done. I mean,
yeah,
my website, it's pretty old, archaic looking, like, it's basic. But I mean, reviews is good to look through, but just testimonials, video
yeah,
testimonials. I have some of those as well. I'm sure you
fabulous.
do as well. And this written, if I, a referral is huge. These
Yes,
are businesses that, when they find a good contractor, it's sort of, they want to tell people, hey, look at this, this great guy, will take care of you. And you can trust and rely on that referral where you can call them and, hey, did they do a good job?
yeah,
And tell me how the job went. Where was it on time? Was it on budget? Were there any red flags? And that's something as well when you're doing your due diligence, as you said,
yeah,
reading through those reviews, is call those previous customers and verify
yep.
that
Sometimes
they're worth.
that old school tech
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
better than the new.
No, I'm with you. Yeah. AI is definitely hopping now, but it's going to be old
It's not going
school.
to do
You
all
got,
that research for you. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Was a good idea about, websites. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Um, we're about 25 minutes into it. I don't want to take too much of our time, but kind of closing off here. Um, I guess where can people connect with you? Like,
Yeah.
where's a good
So,
place to find you at, John?
yeah, we're in Toronto. You can call us on our number at 647-639-6588. Or you can just check out our website at thegoodbrush.ca.
Cool.
I
All right.
think we have a .com as well that will redirect you, just to make
Yeah.
sure no one's trying to steal our IP.
Okay. Got it. All right. Well, thanks, John, for your time, man. Do appreciate it. There's definitely some value there.
All right, Robert.
And yeah, I look forward to doing this again some other time. But yeah,
Yeah.
thank you again, man. Thanks to anyone else that joined. I appreciate you tuned into it, and we'll talk to you and see you on the next one.
Well, thanks, Robert, and
All right.
I appreciate it and all the best. I
All right.
think what you're doing here is fantastic and
Cool.
something the industry needs.
All right. Thanks, John.
All right. Take care.